Hello and welcome to this Managed Methods video. Today we're going to be conducting an app audit. App audits are where we'll go into the platform and take a look at the various third-party applications your end users have authorized. And this is a way where you can take a look and make sure that people have not authorized applications that they shouldn't have with those OAuth tokens, or if there aren't odd applications out there that don't belong. So this is a great way to check on both the security side of things as well as on the acceptable use side of things as well too. The core principles of the app audit will apply both to Google and to Microsoft. There are some differences. One of those primary differences being on the Google side, there will be app policies. On the Microsoft side, unfortunately, there are not those same app policies, and app policies are a way where the platform can then continuously keep revoking access to those third-party applications moving forward there. The other difference will be the terminology under access levels. On the Microsoft side, it's slightly different. Fundamentally, it's the same though. The unmanaged emails is going to be in Google. Over on Microsoft, it would be called Mail. So kind of this similar idea there, but slightly different terminology. Coming here into the Apps tab and beginning the app audit, one of the first things that I always recommend taking a look at are the risky apps. These are going to be the applications that have a higher level of risk associated with them, and especially the critical risks apps are really important to take a look at. Critical risks apps are those applications that have a little bit more admin level access than your standard application, and something that you haven't yet gone through and said, this is something I know and trust, and gone ahead and approved it here. So in this example here, we have this auto IT tool. We can see here it's currently not categorized, and then we can also see further down here it has some different admin level access for sure, so a lot of powerful permissions associated with this application. Right next to that, we can then see how that risk score is calculated. It's going to be based on 4 factors. Factor 1 is going to be admin level permissions there, so applications that do have that higher level of access, you're going to certainly see those appear in here, and that's why it's really good to check in on these applications. Factor 2 is going to be, has this application been sanctioned by you as the end user there? When you sanction applications, that will always lower the risk score associated with them. So for any critical risk applications you do know and recognize and trust, I do recommend coming here and sanctioning those directly. Below that is going to be, does the application have write access? So that'll be another weighted factor in there as well too. And then lastly, what is the overall sanction percentage from the managed methods user base as a whole? As we can see here, it's a very low sanction percentage with 0%. So this would then actually increase the risk score associated with this application. So all 4 of those factors will be weighted together, and that's how you'll get critical risk, high, medium, and then finally low there as well too. To the right of that, you'll also see there's an organizational unit section here. This allows you to see the breakdown of the users based on OU, so you can quickly go through and take a look at those users from there. You can also go ahead and click on the application by either the 7 number here next to users or the name of the application. If you don't want to lose your place as you're going through the applications, I recommend right-clicking on the application and opening it up in a new tab here. Now we're looking at the application itself, and we'll see all the various users that are listed. We can also see here there's a description of the application, which is a hyperlink to where that application is actually located. I could go ahead and click on that and take a look. I can, in the top right hand corner here, actually export out the users I'm currently seeing of this application as a CSV report at any point. And then I can also come in and actually go ahead and break off individual users who shouldn't potentially have access to this application. So in this case, if I go ahead and click revoke here, it's going to go ahead and break those OAuth tokens, but just on these student accounts, and would leave the staff accounts and this other admin account in place here. So this is a way where you can go through and selectively break out people who may not need to have access to certain applications and ensure that they haven't authorized something that they shouldn't there. But it gives you some granular control and ability to go in there and take those actions. Additionally, you can go ahead and revoke from the apps tab here itself. This would revoke everybody who's associated with that application, so do keep that in mind. So if there's a lot of users on that application, it's going to break the OAuth tokens to everybody using it. There are then the option to sanction or unsanction applications. So sanctioning will go ahead and again lower that risk score, say this is something I know and trust, and go ahead and approve it there. Unsanction is a way to go ahead and undo that sanction action. I'm going to go ahead and sanction this application here today, so I'll come up to the top here, press confirm. That's going to go ahead and then sanction that application. And if I go ahead and refresh the page here in the top left hand corner, it's going to go ahead and then show me I now have no critical risk apps. Looking good there. Next area that's good to check in on is the access level section here. So each of these access levels is good to go through. I usually recommend starting with whichever number is highest. Usually that tends to be the applications that can view and manage emails. There are a lot of applications out there that want high level access into end users' inboxes, and this is a really great way to sort through those and figure out what applications are out there. So in this case, we've got a couple here that have not been currently sanctioned yet. Of course, it's good to go through anything that you do not know and recognize. If you see something that looks weird, always good to double check in on it and see what's going on. Again, this is where the scope categories section here is really helpful, because this will give you a good idea of what permissions were authorized with this application when the OAuth token was authorized there. So in this case, this end user granted read, send, delete, and manage permissions to their inbox with this particular application, which is pretty powerful permissions for an application there. So something that's really good to keep an eye on and make sure of those applications that have that access level, do they make sense in the environment? Something like a Racket and Cashback here in a similar situation, but has a lot less permissions than the mail track one there that we saw above. Again, still, it may not make sense for something like this that has view and manage, or in this case, just view email messages and settings access to be in the environment here. And this is where something there you can again make the determination of, should this be in the environment? Is this something I want to go ahead and take action against? And that's certainly always available there with that revoke as well. But always good to vet those applications. So again, if you go ahead and click into it there, it'll go ahead and give you the basic information on the application. It'll give you a description of where that application was located, if possible there, and then you can come in here and revoke right from here as well too. But it is good to go through the rest of the apps with the various access levels as well too. User profiles and roles, groups and OUs, files and drive. These are all important to go through and take a look at. You want to make sure the applications in each of these different access levels are ones that make sense and that you do know and trust. And if you don't recognize something, you don't need to revoke it right away. You can go ahead and hold off and then take a look at the application first. Other thing to note as you are going through with applications and breaking the OAuth tokens, you'll want to make sure you note down which applications you're breaking the OAuth tokens to if you're in the various access levels section, because these may have different app category types and maybe ones where you can't set a more generic policy up for. So that's where you may want to make more specific policies instead of more broad policies. The next way we can go ahead and take a look at applications is based on app category. So app category is a way where the managed methods team will go out and categorize applications as best as possible there. So we do categorize those various applications, and there'll be a lot of app categories available. We try to use pretty standard categories there, but you'll see there's anything from things like games to shopping to tools. Some categories that are really important to keep a close eye on to start out with if you don't have policies in place already are VPN applications, explicit applications, social applications. The VPN explicit tend to be pretty straightforward as why they usually don't belong in there, but social can be a combination of a lot of different things. That can include social media applications, as you may know and recognize, but it could also include things like chat rooms or other odd applications that may not make sense in the environment. Entertainment tends to also be kind of a grab bag of odd applications that you may run across. Certainly something like dating applications, which is a little bit further up on this list, may not make sense in the environment either. Games is always a good one to check in on. So you can certainly go through various categories and pick and choose what you want to take a look at. For the purposes of today, I'm going to come back down to social here and I'll select that. And if you do start typing it in, it'll go ahead and find the correct app category for you. And then you just want to make sure you click on it, and then you can either go ahead and press enter or press the search bar here, and that's going to go ahead and show you the applications of that specific type. So in this case, we've got this one Reddit application here. We can come over and see what permissions the application does have here. It's got a few different permissions, but nothing too powerful there. And we can see there's just one person on it. In this case, it is a student account. So if that's something where you decide, you know what, this is not something I want in my environment, you can come in here and go ahead and break that OAuth token. Now, there may be situations in these app categories where there are certain applications that are known and trusted, where you say, we've vetted these applications, these are good to go. We don't want the platform incidentally revoking access to that if we set up a policy moving forward. So if additional users want to go ahead and add that, it's not going to cause any problems. And that's where you can come in and go ahead and sanction applications again. So sanctioning is a tagging system, but the platform will also use that with a policy. So if you sanction something in here and someone else adds it to the environment, it'll still let that application through. So this is a way to really create a list of known and trusted applications there. Above the search bar here, there is also the option to register new applications ahead of time. So this can be really handy if you want to go ahead and set up some applications that you already know and trust ahead of time. So when people add those applications moving forward, it's going to go ahead and not revoke access to those if you so choose. You can do the inverse here. By default, it's going to say sanctioned, but you could also create a list of unsanctioned applications. You will want to try to use the app names that you're seeing in the main discovered application side of things. If you don't know the exact app name, no worries there. You'll want to just try to get as close as possible. If the platform does incidentally revoke something, it's not a permanent revoke, and you can go over to the policy violations tab, grab the name of that application, and then just go ahead and paste it in here. That way, moving forward, someone re-adds it again, it's going to go ahead and then let that application through there. So once you've made your determination on what should happen here, you can go ahead and revoke the applications that don't need to be in here. That'll go ahead and break those OAuth tokens on a one-off basis, and then from there you'll want to go ahead and start setting up some policies. Policies in the Google side of applications are going to really what is really going to be what works for you moving forward there. That's going to really help go ahead and continuously break those OAuth tokens there. So there's two ways to access policies. The first way is the Policy Violations tab here. So there is the View/Edit Policies button here where you can go ahead and click into that, and that's going to go ahead and show you the various policies. Or you can go all the way out to Audit and Control here and the 15 enabled policies. It's going to take you to the exact same landing page here where it's going to start with content policies, but you'll want to make sure you navigate over to app policies here. And by default, there's 3 out-of-the-box app policies. 2 of them will be turned off. This critical risk unsanctioned apps policy will be turned on. I always recommend turning on this second policy, and if you'd like, even setting it to revoke access. The reason for this is going to go ahead and then break the OAuth tokens moving forward when it comes to those third-party applications, especially when it comes to VPN explicit applications, which really don't have any business being in your environment there. Other thing to note here too is how those notifications will come to you when a policy has been violated. By default, whoever's listed in this top field is going to be the one that receives those email alert notifications. Those are batched out and sent to you every 4 hours there. You can speed that process up by clicking the Notify Admin checkmark box here. You can also delegate out individual policies as well too on a per policy basis via the Send Email To field. There's also a Notify User option as well, so you can also warn people about the fact that you're going to go ahead and break the OAuth tokens, or you can go ahead and have it break the OAuth tokens and let them know after the fact. If we come down here and press save, that will go ahead and confirm the changes here, and then you'd be ready to add a new policy. And there's a couple different approaches you can take with policies. You'll always want to make sure you give a policy a name, and that's really your choice on what you want to call it. Unapproved apps for kind of a generic policy is going to be going after a lot of different applications. Probably by their app name is a good option to start with. And then from there, you can also do more category-based policies. And really your choice on how you want to set those up. If you need assistance, you can always let the Managed Methods team know. They'll be happy to assist you further and dig into those policies with you. I'll give a couple examples here quickly of how you can set those policies up. So by app name, for example, if Reddit was an application I wanted to go ahead and set a policy up for, very easy to do so. You just start typing in the name of the application. It's going to go ahead and auto-populate. Even if you've revoked access to it, it should still pull it from the list here, and then you'll be able to select it. Now the nice thing with using app name here is if the app ID does change, as long as that name stays the same, it's going to go ahead and keep breaking the OAuth tokens. And you can certainly go beyond just exactly as. There's also a starts with, has keywords, or even exclude. Below that is the option for app category. These are the more broad category types. So for example, if I wanted to set a policy up on social applications in general, go ahead and select social here. I'd then be good to go. That would then select any applications that were classified as social. Below that, you can then also have scope category factor in. These are going to be the APIs themselves that are going to be specifically what you saw there with the different kinds of access levels. So view and manage emails, those broader overall APIs there. So certainly an option that can be helpful in certain circumstances with policies, but generally speaking, if you're setting one for something like social applications or things like that, where you're not really concerned about the access they have, but more just the fact they're there in the environment in the first place, I don't recommend using scope category. Scope is going to be the more narrow permissions there. So this is where, for example, you could look at the permissions around mail and email there. Again, this can be really handy, especially in certain category types where you may want to restrict or keep an eye on certain types of applications that are being added. But again, for a more broad one where you're just looking for applications more on the acceptable use side of things, that's where I'd again recommend probably just leaving these blank. If you leave them blank here, it'll apply to all scope categories and scopes. Next over is the trust section here. First section here is risk, so that's going to be pulling from that risk score directly. Can be a helpful factor in creating those policies. Generally speaking, though, I don't see this used as much. It tends to be one that's left blank there because you want to go ahead and drill down as much as possible with those various applications. So even if it's something that doesn't have a high risk, it may be something that still doesn't need to be in your domain in the first place. Below that is unsanctioned apps. So this is where you can go ahead and select the checkmark box next to discovered if you want to go ahead and allow through any applications you've either sanctioned or pre-sanctioned via that register new app section there. So that's a great way if you want to allow certain applications through that you do know and trust and have vetted. The other option is the registered, and this would be then referencing from that list of unsanctioned applications. Again, I don't see this used as commonly there. And then the usage fields here are going to be who these policies apply to. And this can be an include or exclude option there. So it can be specific users, groups, or even OUs. And this is going to auto-populate with your various users, groups, or OUs. Once you start typing it in, it'll certainly narrow it down for you. And then any parent OU will capture any child OUs as well too when you're setting those policies up. So I can go ahead and set up a quick test policy here. So here we can see the social apps students policy. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the social apps category there. You'll notice that the app name category has now grayed out. Doesn't need any additional information there from that field. I'm going to go ahead and select the checkmark box here next to discovered, since I've got maybe a few applications that I do know and trust in that social category type. And I'm also going to have this just apply to the student OU here. Whenever I'm ready, I can go ahead and click apply there. That policy will now be created and will be at the bottom. By default, this policy is not going to have remediation set. Remediation is always set to none initially, but if you come in here, you can then click the drop down arrow and set that to revoke access. That will then go ahead and break those OAuth tokens moving forward there. Whenever I'm ready, I can then go ahead and press save. That will go ahead and confirm my changes there and say this is good to go. And then I'm done. So then you can repeat that process for more policies as you go along. You can also duplicate your existing policies and then just change minor parts of them as well too if you'd like. So a lot of flexibility when creating those app policies. And once you get some app policies set up, the platform is going to take care of things moving forward. The revoke does a great job of continuously breaking those OAuth tokens, and it will really keep things a little bit more locked down in your environment for you. I hope this app audit was helpful to give you some further insight into the third-party applications in your environment and give you some tools to go ahead and start taking some action against those and getting some policies in place. Thanks so much for your time.